All praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Ruchakwadash. Double honors to my elders and apostles at Great Millstone. Peace, safety, much love, and blessing to the Akim across the four corners of the earth that are pushing out this truth and sincerity and putting their lives on the line to do so. I want to say shalom to you, brothers, on the Brother Rock out of GMS Atlanta, back in the spirit with another lesson. And Lord willing, the lesson be edifying and also exhorting to an elect member or two. This is going to be another installment of the daily exhortation, number 10. And it's going to be along the lines of examining ourselves daily, okay? We're going to start out in the book of 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians 13, I believe it's verse 5. It says, examine yourselves, Salakia. I like to start these lessons out, these daily exhortations with the definition of what it means to exhort, okay? According to Google, to exhort means to strongly encourage, earnestly advise, or try to persuade someone to do something. It often involves using passionate speech or an urgent appeal to motivate action. All right, so that exhortation today will be on examining ourselves. 2 Corinthians 13 and 5, it says, examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how Yahushua Mashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. So, it's easy to always point out the wrongdoings in others, or talk about, how bad America is, how 2/3 of our people, ain't shit, how the black woman ain't shit. It's easy to, open your eyes and look out and see the wrong. But we also have to look within ourselves and examine ourselves, all right, daily, that we be in the faith, okay? Which is most importantly, because you got to clean your own house first before you start trying to clean up the community, is what they say. And that's a very true statement. We often examine the world. We can expose false doctrine and rebuke the wicked. All right. But judgment is going to start where? The judgment starts at the house of Israel. When the Lord comes back, yeah, he knows the other nations, are slated for death and slavery. But judgment is going to start right with his people, okay, in-house, all right? Even when it comes to, correcting another brother, all right, we have to get the mold out our own eye first before we can then try to correct others. And this is not, speaking, to any particular brother. This is just first and foremost to myself as well. I'm not above examining myself, and, recognizing or realizing my shortcomings. All right. But the best thing to do is realize that you have them and try to fix them, and what are we to do? All right. We are walking in the valley of the shadow of death, but we have been entrusted with this truth. So we have to walk differently. And in walking differently, you have to constantly look yourself in the mirror. All right. Whether you are keeping the commandments to the best of your ability, because according to the book of Ecclesiastes, that's the whole duty of man, is to fear God and keep the commandments. All right. So from there, let's get the parable of removing the beam from your own eye that I mentioned earlier. So we're going to go to the book of Matthew, the 7th chapter. This is Matthew chapter 7 and verse 3. It says, I'll start at the top. Judge not that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye met, it shall be measured to you again. All right. So the same judgment that you're using to condemn someone, you have to be willing to use that same judgment when it comes to your own self. All right. And use the same metrics that you're measuring others' shortcomings and fallings. All right. Use that same metric to measure your own self. All right. Verse 3, and it says, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but consider not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out thy own eye, and behold, a beam is in thy own eye? Okay. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. All right. So yeah, that's the parable. These are in blue, Salakia. These are in red letters. Okay, this is Yahweh Shai speaking. He often spoke in parables. So this parable basically saying, hey, clean your own shit up first, for lack of better words, before you try to clean someone else's shit up. All right. Or judge and examine your own self before you try to go out and start examining others. All right. So, with that being said, not going to be too long on the lesson, just wanted to exhort, but I also wanted to, make this point before ending, the lesson. All right. Us men of Israel, uh, we have to be able to lead ourselves, before we can lead others. We have to also be a follower of Yahweh Shai Mashiach and hold ourselves to the same standards that he held himself, before we can then hold others to that same standard. All right. Um, so yeah, Lord willing, this was an edifying, also exhorting lesson. I'm gonna end it giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakodash, Shalom.